right, preparing, setting up the meeting, and I think we will be there momentarily. All right, Dr. Wright. All right, Dr. Craig Wright, we are live. And now it's just you and me. And I don't know if you see the words breaking news. Like, I don't know how breaking, but I wanted to have a little bit of that like clickbait kind of feel. Someone goes, wow, Craig's about to do
shouldn't you have CNN
crazy.
going across the top then?
I think that's what we're going to add next. I'm like, for those of you, Craig is going to be making the biggest announcement he's ever made before. Craig, go ahead.
Am I? What am I making?
Oh my, I mean, come on. You realize someone tuned in for the words breaking news to go, this is going to be a big one.
No, but I can tell you one thing that's out there, which is a lot of people have got this false idea that I'm trying to stop people looking at my white paper, which is exactly the opposite. I would love people to look at my white paper. I want them to read it. The problem I see right at the moment is we have a world of people taking false narratives and not actually reading what I wrote. I mean, all this, oh, the white paper doesn't apply anymore. Of course it does. Bitcoin remains Bitcoin. The reason I created Bitcoin has never changed. It is first and foremost and primarily a peer-to-peer digital currency system that allows for micropayments. Now, the sexy big thing that everyone sort of wanted 10, 20 years ago was micropayments. It is still the sexy big thing. There have been hundreds of digital gold type things around. They have been worth $2 trillion 20 years ago in the past, all of which went to zero in under 10 days. These things, because they're digital gold Ponzi schemes, are not stable. There's one thing that makes it stable. It's utility. Utility comes from use. No one cares about a system that allows you to send large amounts of money if you're rich internationally with a complete record that means tax and money laundering applications are going to apply and can go back 20 years when we've got 20 years worth of records, allowing the tax authorities to seize your assets anytime in the future. Nobody cares. They do care about a system that allows you to send fractions of a cent, to buy coffee, to buy goods online, to pay for applications at a 1/10 of a cent a time. Nobody has managed to do that before Bitcoin. That's the sexy aspect of Bitcoin.
But now when we dig into Bitcoin, now there is Bitcoin, who is the #1 market cap. Then there is Bitcoin Satoshi Vision.
Well, no, you're confusing that.
All right,
you're
so
saying
walk me through
BTC. So that's passing off. There's no forking, there's no protocol changes in Bitcoin. So I stated when I launched Bitcoin that Bitcoin was set in stone. The protocol does not change. That's because you cannot innovate, you cannot create, you cannot build, you cannot do anything without a stable protocol. Now, some of the documents that will start coming out will include all of the files we were doing between 2011 and 2015 in Australia. We had extensive sort of management of all the software processes back then. And most people don't realize in between end of December 2013 and February 2014, we'd already built up in Australia, without anyone knowing who we were, over 55 staff. So I mean, the companies I had there working on Bitcoin were that large. We had project management, etc. And we had developed, we were working on developing a scalable platform for Bitcoin. None of this, everyone has to run a node at home BS, because nodes are purely defined in the white paper section 5. There's one consensus mechanism in Bitcoin, and it is creating nodes. Users don't need to do that because the hash chain maintain security. Users just need that. That's SPV. So at that time, we were trying to develop and make something that would work better and scale. We had all of those staff, and they couldn't keep up because some of the risk sort of reports that I've just been going over from back then, the staff were complaining because there were massive changes to the underlying protocol every month. And there were. And people say that, oh, that's not really changes. They were. This is like, everyone argues permissionless. If you want permissionless, you can't change it. TCP was issued under, I think, RFC 110 something, 791 for IP and TCP, but anyway, long time ago, 1981. TCP in the RFC hasn't changed since 1981. There have been some little additions like the evil bit, but that's a April 1st joke where bad guys can signal that they have malicious packet streams by putting the evil bit in their TCP. And apart from that sort of thing, which no one's implemented, TCP has not changed. Stacks from 1981 are compatible today. If you're on the newest server from connecting to Google on IPv6, the TCP stream you're sending is exactly the same. That's what enabled the internet. You don't start a project and have to undo what you're doing and rebuild. So we had a 2-year project that is only going to get launched this year. And it's only now because with no one else playing with the protocol, we can develop. And here's the thing, anyone could develop. But if you keep changing the protocol, like Core have done, that's how you control things. Because people who are friendly to you, well, you can make sure that their applications work. People who aren't friendly, you can break their applications. If you want innovation, you don't allow control of an underlying protocol. If I can't control the protocol even though I invented Bitcoin, if I'm not even allowed to change it, that's how you get innovation, because people can build whatever they want on top of my protocol. And if I don't like it, stiff. That's the whole thing. That's what innovation derives from. If I cannot change a single aspect of the protocol I developed, then I can't tell you not to develop. I can't tell you I don't like your software. That's a big distinction here.
So let's go there, because there have been a lot of comments recently, as well as in the past, around you. And I think this goes without saying, while I'm a dynamic personality, you're a dynamic personality that you will say and do things. So the question that we have had from many people is that you say you are Satoshi, but there seems to be still a group of people that don't believe you. So
because it's not a Cypherpunk project. You don't. I don't want them. I don't care. They can do what they want. But there's a difference here. They can do what they want and not call it Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not, was not, will never be a Cypherpunk project. Bitcoin was not released on the Cypherpunk mailing list. Bitcoin was released on the cryptography mailing list, a list that had 30% of its members in the US government, a list with people from the NSA, people from RSA, the company, people from PKI companies, people from the US military, some of the people from SANS who trained all of these individuals, people from the FBI, people from the Department of Homeland Security. Does that sound like Cypherpunk to you?
So you have the technical knowledge. I don't think that that's even in question. But then from a technical side, because there are others in the space or in the ecosystem or worldwide, just necessarily that understand the concept of Bitcoin, that is the white paper. But there is still this group that will say that if you have access to keys,
That's not how Bitcoin works. That's not how the system works.
All right, so
That's
tell me how it should work.
Digital signatures require identity. So what you have is an argument from a bunch of cypherpunks who want the Dread Pirate Robert type defense. They want this concept that keys equal ownership. They don't. Bitcoin does not say keys equal ownership. It's not defined as that in the white paper. Ownership can be represented and controlled by the keys. The white paper says the keys allow for control by the owner. That is a separate and distinct thing. That means, like it says in there, identity is firewalled off, but that does not remove it. You do not, in law, prove by using a digital signature algorithm unless it goes through all of the things to make it a digital signature. And holding a key is not the same in any way as being a digital signature. To be a digital signature, you need identity first. So we have this PGP key that has the small fingerprint, the same as my original PGP key. But, and here's the thing, it's not the same one. And that's easily demonstrable. If you look at the site and you click where it says in 2009, it actually redirects over to the 2011 one that was issued after. And it's not just a simple little text file. It is a complex piece of scripted code so that meta tags and whatever else can be hidden.
So then let me ask you this then. Is there a way that could give everyone but you complete proof, or without the shadow of a doubt feel that you are Bitcoin? Like, is there something that could be done?
Oh, it's called the same way law works. It's not a crypto project. There is no crypto project here. Bitcoin is not Cypherpunk. It is not a cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is digital cash. I keep pointing this out. There is no cryptography used in Bitcoin. In fact, the system cannot work if anything is encrypted. It is completely public. Saying, oh, there's cryptographically secured hashes is not cryptography. Digital signature algorithms are not cryptography. Cryptography involves making secret messages, zero knowledge proofs, etc.
So it's the wrong term that is being used. It should be called
it's more than the wrong term.
But then who is creating this wrong term? Because there seems to be a lot of people around the world that now associate the word Bitcoin with cryptocurrency.
Yes, there are a lot of false narratives out there and a lot of people promoting those.
But does that really, I mean, while it is, yes, semantics, but does it really matter in the end?
Completely.
Why?
At the end of the day, if you want to create something, make your own project. Do not airdrop, and that's what they've done. BTC is a complete airdrop. There are no forks in Bitcoin. When I said there was one protocol and it's set in stone, that means one. No SegWit, no changing end lock time, no CLTV, which I actually said was a very bad idea in 2010. I think it was August 2010. I said with op block time, it was originally called, that was one of the stupidest ideas anyone's ever proposed as Satoshi. I said that on the forums publicly. I said op block time was daft. Now, if you then rename it and say, oh, it's not op block time now, it's op CLTV, then all you've done is rename a daft project to be daft again. And it is. The concept here is trying to make something so that they can hook Lightning Network into it. Lightning Network, if you read the paper, says at scale, this will resemble and mirror the existing banking network. Bitcoin is not there to mirror the existing banking network. Bitcoin isn't there to lose records.
But you also have to see from the perspective of, I'm saying you have to, this isn't like a dictation, but to see from the other perspective that you have now reached a stage where you're incredibly wealthy off of
No, I don't need to see a stage. What you're saying is if someone wants to hijack and change my creation, they're allowed to. Bitcoin was not released on GitHub. Bitcoin was not a community project. If you talk to Gavin, and people don't like all of this now, he'll tell you that I was basically a dictator when it came to Bitcoin for when I was there. When I handed stewardship over, not ownership, not control, stewardship, the mandate was not to change Bitcoin. So at the end of the day, if you want to completely change what's happening and do something else and create something new, good. But you don't get to go out there and call it Bitcoin.
So then let me ask you a question again. While I know more than most, I also don't know everything that some of the OGs have. When it comes to Bitcoin, was it written alone or was there some help?
Oh, no help. The original version of Bitcoin is my crappy code.
And the white paper, was there any help putting that together?
I had people edit. My uncle reviewed it. A few other people reviewed it. Some people in companies I was doing work with reviewed it. Not one or two, multiples.
So you don't claim to be the world's greatest, I'm going to use the word programmer, because you just said the word crappy code. You're not saying, look, I'm the best programmer that ever lived.
Oh, Christ, no. Yeah, not by, I mean, the threading in Bitcoin was terrible. There are a number of security vulnerabilities still in there. Everyone says how great I was. I mean, there were, everyone knows that. It crashed on different platforms. The integration of Boost outside of Microsoft Visual Studio with the required patches was horrible. Helfini fixed that. Let's see, the fact the methodologies used in how I did sort of selection of opcodes was awful. I mean, if you think about it, I have a series of case statements. Basically, the type of sort of script would vary in execution time depending on the order of case statements and other such things, which weren't optimized. I mean, but it was an alpha at my own it was an alpha piece of code, which that's why in 2012 I hired a whole pile of people as development sort of engineers and whatever else for me, and slowly built those up over time, and why nChain's got sort of masses of people now. I don't even know how many people we have.
Let's talk about that, because there is, again, what I like about this, and I asked you before the interview that said anything off limits independent of clickbait. So let's talk about your relationship with Calvin Ayre, because there have been a group of people that have made certain claims. There's also been the group in the other camp that have made certain claims. So what is the relationship you have with Calvin?
Calvin's a good friend. He's an investor now in nChain. That happened last year.
And taking on a business partner, that's a challenge for anybody that is in business. What was that like?
What business partner are we talking about?
For nChain. Did he become a business partner or just an investor?
He's just an investor.
So who then runs for nChain, because it's a private company, who runs the day-to-day?
Oh, that's David Washburn. I mean, part of setting up what we did and all the rest with when I approached Stefan in the past and setting up nChain over here from Australia was not being CEO. The best decision I've ever made in my life was firing myself as CEO, and becoming chief science officer, and just focusing on the research, the development, the software, the code, the papers, that stuff again, and building up my research team. The worst possible thing I ever did in my life was trying to be CEO in Australia, and then being taken away from actually doing research, to have meetings with tax lawyers, with corporate lawyers, with the equivalent of the SEC, the ASIC people. Life was horrible. It was all about just meetings with bureaucracies all the time. I'm very glad that David's willing to do that.
Yeah, and
I don't want his job. Don't ever want to take his job.
Sure. But let me ask you in terms of, because again, there is, again, you say you are Satoshi. To me, that would mean that someone that has significant ownership in Bitcoin would have a significant. So why take on an investor? Again, having somebody who owns a business, taking on investor usually means I need the other person's thing. If it's money, if it's contacts, that why, again, I'm talking to those out
growth.
there.
I mean, the first thing I'll tell you is anyone who has half a brain will find other investors very quickly. In Australia, I tried to do this with majority control. I maintained 75 approximately % of company ownership and control, and had 25, which was enough to keep my finger on everything. That's actually messy, because no one tells you, you end up with yes men. No one tells you what you're screwing up. And you don't feel you need to listen to others. When you have to work with others, it's much better. I actually prefer the scenario we're in now. Where we are now compared to where I was in Australia, I had more ownership in Australia, and more control, and that got me into more trouble because I didn't ever need to listen to anyone. Now I have a scenario where I have to listen to people at times. I may not always act and do what people want. Actually, that's probably rare. I try to, but what can I say? I've got Asperger's and I have my mind on my own. But the whole point here is, when you have other people, if you structure things correctly, it's way stronger.
That's an interesting response, and one of, I do agree that bringing on accountability is always a good thing in all aspects of your life. So it had nothing to do with not having the capital or not having access to keys. This was it was a good business move.
It was a very good business move. We actually structured everything 6 years ago now, so that we'd move over here. The deal was.
He must be one heck of a negotiator, by the way. Having known Calvin, that must have been one heck of a negotiation.
This is before Calvin.
Oh, okay.
So N-Chain and whatever else started before Calvin.
So he came in afterwards. So now let's talk to
Calvin. Was involved in discussions and helped me as a mentor, and probably helped convince me that I really needed to step down as a CEO and not try and do that. But that's a different role. So Calvin's now part of all this, but that's because things have gone well and he sees it. I mean, that's another indication too. If you're able to do new capital raises and bring new people in, go from round A, B, C, whatever else, it shows that you're on the right track. You know that if you get to round B and there's no round C coming, then maybe you're not doing what people think you should be doing. So you need to, maybe you're right in that, but you need to really look hard at what you're doing and reflect.
So talk about the people around you. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have a condition called Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like to work with you, and what's it like to be part of your team or extended team?
Oh, I think they'll mostly tell you horrible. I'm better than I used to be. I'll say that much. I'm much less stressed than I was in Australia, so I'm nowhere near as annoying as I used to be at that point. But that's because I focus on the areas I'm best at. So will I say that I'm easy to work for or with or anything like that? Damn well no. I am not easy to work with at all. But there are people who are very loyal, very supportive, very helpful, and I've built a great team. I mean, I've built a team that I trust sort of explicitly. I've got people like Shatters and Carl and whatever else out there. The guys in Slovenia are magnificent.
Now let's kind of move on to the next. Let's talk about, recently I read some, again, I only know what I read, Craig, which is why I asked you, would you do this interview? But it said that you are, and this is my words, Dustin's words, you're suing everybody right now, that you are just like that guy who's going around and suing everybody.
Last I checked, I'm not suing you.
That's, you know what, that's true. I could say everybody but me.
I haven't sued my wife either, nor my mother, my uncle. I mean, all this, I'm suing everyone.
So what is going on then?
I'm suing a few people associated with sort of this concept of passing off this thing that is not Bitcoin as Bitcoin. So these people who go around saying that Bitcoin's digital gold and that it's a Ponzi scheme, that it will pump up to $1 million and everyone will get rich. What complete, utter trash. These people are basically scum who are pumping something with no utility. I mean, and BTC has no utility. It has a lower transaction rate than the sort of central bank of, I don't know, Fiji, after a server outage. So basically we have this system that, what the hell purpose does it ever have? It's not digital cash, but people are buying it, believing that it is.
But as long as you have off ramps, though, but if there are off ramps, it does convert into digital cash.
No, it doesn't. It has Tether, which is a complete scam. That is the most fraudulent Ponzi in years.
Well, you do have
Tether. The whole purpose of Tether is basically allowing criminals to launder their money so that people who are involved with sex trafficking, provably, people who are involved with drug trafficking, provably, arms dealers and terrorists can get their money laundered and washed. That's the whole purpose of Tether. That's what this is about. It is completely a get stupid noobs to buy into the promise of instant wealth, democratizing finance, which is one of the exact phrases used by Charles Ponzi. No one seems to recognize this. Charles Ponzi sold his scam, one of the first widely distributed and known about, not the first Ponzi schemes, but one of the first known Ponzi schemes. Charles Ponzi did it democratizing finance. Basically, we don't need regulation. Why? Because I'm going to take your money and screw you over. That's what these guys are doing. They are not building something. They are not building a system to replace banking. Bitcoin is not a bank. Bitcoin does not allow you to bank. Bitcoin can never allow you to bank because banking is not cash. You get banking to have loans. Poor people, the unbanked, are not banked because of Bitcoin. They don't get a home loan because of Bitcoin.
But there is an ecosystem being built.
No, there's not. What ecosystem? There are scams. There's not one system of payments. Back in 2013, I could go and buy a coffee with Bitcoin. There was a whole street in Berlin where I could walk down that street end to end and pay for every single purchase I made with Bitcoin. Not one of them takes Bitcoin now. I could go to Microsoft and buy goods with Bitcoin. I could pay for travel with Bitcoin because the fees were low, because it was secure, because it was instant, because it was inexpensive. It was cash.
But there are still companies that are building that, Travala being one of them. I mean, you
No,
can.
they're not.
Well, they're allowing you to exit if you have Bitcoin or other crypto assets.
Charles Ponzi had a exit scheme too. So not really, no. What they're doing is building a gambling system, a manipulated, easily sort of designed to screw people over gambling system. There is no use. You will never have use on the 4 transactions a second level. To be a global system, if you don't get to 10,000 transactions a second, you're not even worth looking at. If you want to get to cash, you need to be at 1 million transactions a second.
But if there are ways to spend these digital assets, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, but
if you can't buy a coffee, it's not cash.
Well, there are companies like MetalPay out there and
that are basically already criminally in breach of half of the world's legislation. Bitcoin comes under money laundering. That means none of this, oh, we're not custodial or whatever else. BS. Every exchange is custodial. Full stop. There's no such thing as distributed finance. All these DeFi things are complete, utter frauds, scams, lies. Not one of them. There is no distributed thing. Saying Binance running a DeFi, think of that. A single party running multiple nodes. So what, they're multiple nodes? I can run an Oracle system on 100 nodes today. It's still an Oracle system. It is still a node.
Now, I mean, I look at individuals like CZ Binance and I admire what they've built. Are you saying that these aren't
What has he
companies?
built? He has built crappy off-the-shelf software that you can buy for MT4, basically launched a illegal bucket shop, not new, not a completely new idea, manipulates price. The innovation he's done is fleeing from government regulation as he moves from country to country to country as he gets kicked out. That's it. He has bankrupted many people, manipulated prices, paid no tax, defrauded individuals. What innovation? Honestly, what innovation? The Australian Stock Exchange, when I left it, had a more distributed network. It had faster transactions. It had the ability to trade faster, to settle faster. That was in 1996. What innovation?
I mean, those are pretty bold claims.
They're not claims, they're easily validated. What has he done? He has a trading platform. I can buy MT4 software and have it developed in a week. And it could be faster and it could have better trading, whatever else. He is basically pumping out a whole lot of assets, saying that they are non-custodial. They're not non-custodial. There's no such thing as an exchange that is non-custodial. To exchange money on one of these exchanges means you put your money in the exchange. That's custodial by definition. That means money laundering. Because, and I've demonstrated this one already, and he'll get in trouble for it eventually. I went through and I loaded the maximum 2 BTC. I set up thousands of accounts. I did it in a day. That means not only are you breaching the $200 limit by saying 2 BTC, You are allowing an individual without doing money handling KYC regulation to trade masses of money. It is purely.
Now, if I'm CZ, I'm going to say, do you have those 1,000 account IDs that you
No,
supposedly put together to be able to
the
fact check?
FBI do.
So why take so many shots? And this is one of the questions I got.
Because
take
I
so many
don't like
shots
criminal
at people?
scumbags. There's not so many shots at people. These people are doing the same scams as happened 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we had web IPOs. Web IPOs are ICOs rebadged. Oh, sorry, wrong way around. Distributed tokens came out in 1994 widely. A whole lot of people did them. There was even a Simpsons episode where the shares were basically treated as toilet paper. They were just tokens online. This is the same thing, and the same end will happen. There are no values to these companies.
But you see major endowments around the world now dipping their toes in and buying
Do I?
Bitcoin.
I don't see major endowments.
Look,
I see.
Google's my best friend, Craig. So
Oh, you go to
Google's
Forbes
told
and you
me.
see contributor, which is paid advertisement. Independent contributor, paid advertisement. That's not news. So some individual, which we've already traced through some of these, gets paid $2,500 to write an article. And he puts it on Forbes, and he pays Forbes, and Forbes puts it up there. And nobody bothers to check whether it's from a Forbes actual staff member or a contributor, because they've basically wiped out the value of their own brand.
So the space as a whole, the companies that are building, and by the way, I consider many of the people my friends, not like we're the best friends, but like they're buddies. I've interviewed them. I've asked them their story and what their companies do. And I will tell you, I've yet to meet a company that I have interviewed where I have said that, my takeaway was that, yeah, they're trying to rip people off. That I will tell you that these are very genuine companies. They have a sound business model. Not all
Where's
of them
their
have
client?
tokens.
Where is their client?
Many of their clients are all around the world.
Like?
A great example being Travala. I mean, Travala being able to book airlines or book hotels all around the world using your assets, your digital currency.
But they're not. They're using the system that airdropped to me and passes off as Bitcoin. So what? They have an expensive system where they're not doing their required KYC, they're not doing their required AML. So basically, they have a system where they're in breach of a whole lot of laws, all of which is required, and going, it's crypto, we don't need to. BS. The Liberty Reserve case, the Arthur Badowski, when on his appeal, said it's a cryptocurrency. That means money handling laws don't apply. The judge basically came out and said, I don't care whether you use watches or gold or any other asset, you are funding. And the IML basically says funding. It doesn't say money. It doesn't say currency. The law says funding. If you are funding a transaction. So all of these people out there going, it doesn't apply because we're in cryptocurrency, are putting their head up their own ass, not even in the sand, and trying to bullshit each other and their investors that they don't need to do all of these required aspects of what needs to happen. And they're going, it's okay that we're taking money from drug dealers. It's okay that we're taking money from people who basically have human sex trafficking because we're innovating. You're not. You're devolving. You're taking a working system and basically saying we can strip out all of the requirements for KYC, all of the anti-terrorist funding legislation, and we can just send money quickly. So what? All of that now has this thing called a blockchain. And every bit of that will be tracked down. It takes a while. I mean, the 1,200 or so arrests in the Silk Road case took years. And they happened. And only last year, one of the major guys got taken down. And one by one, all of the people will be dragged in. And some will use the, oh, I didn't realize, and get a slap on the wrist. But I hope you actually, if you're developing on this, I hope you actually listen and don't just go Craig Wright bad man because he's pointing out legislation. But think about this. This is the cold, hard truth. If you don't want to go to prison, if you don't want to get bankrupted, if you don't want your family on the street, you have law to apply. Not because I put it in place. I'm the messenger here. If you don't like the fact that there is law, I can't help that. But there is. And if you don't apply it, then you're going to get in trouble. Now, you can say, oh, Craig's telling me bad stuff. I'm sorry, but I did not make these rules. I do think they're good rules. But I think IML needs to apply.
I know those that are listening in and watching it, and I'm trying to create this kind of like I don't know who's the Larry King approach of not being judgmental, but there are a lot of really good people in the ecosystem. There's a lot of really decent people that truly believe they're making a difference and are making a difference around the world. So when you do talk, it almost what I hear is that it's broad.
They're saying they're making a difference.
Everybody.
You're not making a difference by going, we don't need money laundering rules. We don't need KYC. That's not making a difference. Bitcoin isn't there so that people can pay for their bloody private jets without having to fill out a required form. I'm sorry.
And while there is a group of people that have that approach, I am not one of those that I believe you pay your taxes if you receive money from somebody, being a digital asset or traditional fiat, like you pay your taxes on it.
Correct.
So that is not the mindset. Like when you do paint a brush, it cannot be broad in the sense of everybody.
So you gave me an example of a company. Their whole thing is I can buy a holiday on a yacht. I can buy a trip. That's not digital cash. I'm sorry. That's not an example of that. I can't buy a coffee with their application. I can't pay micropayments. I can't replace the internet model of advertising using fractions of a cent per transaction with what they're doing at all. You haven't given me an example of a company that is doing digital cash.
So let's talk about that. Turnio Block Card being one of them. They're a Turnio, Ternio. If you go to getblockcard.com, Turnio Block Card, that they have a Visa debit card that's attached. It's all
again, that's a Visa card. That is, that's not bloody Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't need Visa cards, for frick's sake. I mean, it has a 3% Visa fee. I said, can buy fractions of a cent, not pay off my Visa card. That's not digital cash. You've just done it again. You've taken not cash and said, we have a not cash solution. So what? Can you buy me a coffee? You can't do that with BTC. The BTC fees will charge you between $5 and $12. Park and pay a £1.20 for my parking for a few minutes and not pay more than 0.1 cent, then we're not talking about a digital cash system.
So how do we get there? How do we get to a place where it is 0.01 cent? Because
we already are. Bitcoin always was, but we're not talking about Bitcoin with what you're saying. You're talking about BTC. The government in Tuvalu is rolling out Bitcoin, which is BSV. That will allow them to have instant cash transactions. With BSV, with Handcash, with Centbee, with one of the applications that are rolling out, like Centbee is rolling out across sub-Saharan Africa, that allows people to instantly transfer money at fractions of a cent. I mean, the people down there who earn maybe $2 a day actually care that $5 to $12 fees per transaction is a lot. I mean, everyone goes, oh, well, they're not sending much money. Good. I want people not sending much money, because people in third world countries don't have $5 to waste. The promise of Bitcoin isn't some rich arsehole can buy a yacht without filling out the required tax forms. The simple answer here is, and I'm going to swear on this one, if you think Bitcoin's about you transferring millions of dollars so that you can go yachting, have holidays on private jets, whatever else, fuck you. Bitcoin was designed so that people could have instant payments, small transaction fees, allow people in South Africa and Zimbabwe and whatever else to transfer money fast, securely, and without paying a lot of money, to hold it securely without paying a lot of money. And that's what people are doing.
But now
that's what Bitcoin is.
But now you are known, and I will not spend somebody else's money, but you are known as being a very wealthy individual because of Bitcoin. So
yes.
Have you taken advantage? Have you done those trips on the sale of Bitcoin? Have you done the fancy vacations and the yachts and the other cool stuff on Bitcoin? Like, have you used your Bitcoin to buy
I've done
stuff?
it on cash.
But you exited, I imagine you took the Bitcoin and you exited it through some vehicle.
No, I don't.
So you've never sold a Bitcoin before?
Of course I've sold a Bitcoin before. I use Bitcoin.
So you use it then to pay for things, but that is
no, I actually have other cash.
But other people do that as well around the world, that they are buying into this.
No, actually, I just told you I'm not. I'm not living off my Bitcoin the way you're saying.
Okay.
I have income. I have other corporate assets. I was involved in gaming in the 1990s before anyone knew what the hell gaming was. So no, I don't need to do that. And I'm not living that way. I live very well, but I'm not living, I invest in companies. I invest in that. That's what I do with my money.
But what do you, what's the point of then having all of the, what's the point of having the Bitcoin that is worth
the perfect reason
number?
Money is not so that assholes can sit around and sort of bathe on a bloody beach and whatever else. It's so that you can build businesses, direct innovation, create, build, create, build.
So my background being foster care, again, I have to hear it from those that are tuning in right now, that if I was saying I am Satoshi, which I am not, I'm not even smart enough to be Satoshi. You are smart enough that I am not Satoshi. But if I were and I had access to hundreds or tens of thousands of Bitcoin, and I knew that others perceived the value right now to be 38,000, then that would be worth potentially hundreds or billions of dollars. Someone's going to take my math. Then again, being a foster care kid, true story, then why not take that perceived wealth that others will be glad to take because there is a market around the world and distribute it to those charities?
Oh, for fuck's sake. What a stupid idea.
Why?
You build things. You create things. You don't give out handouts. Handouts don't give dignity. If you want, you invest in someone like Enchain's got investments in Centbee. You take a company and you build people who can build up more, and they hire people, and people work. Through work is dignity. When you give
But
someone a handout,
that's charity. I would say there's a difference between those that are truly less fortunate. Again, I was a little boy, no faults of my own. I went into foster care with my sister. That my shelter, the home that I grew up in called Casa de Amparo, that they would love to have. Like, and I will tell you, there are others in this space that have donated to Casa de Amparo, that they've taken that perceived value of the digital asset or cryptocurrency and have sent it, that you would say that is dignity. To me, is these are little kids that their shelter could use it. They could build a new wing. They could hire more instructors. They could do more
and I
with
can
it.
do more by not donating all my money. By creating companies, by delivering what people need, you do more. If you have no idea what you're doing and you inherited money and you want to waste it, that's a great thing to do.
But that's not if you're a billionaire, though, Craig. If again,
it is if you're a billionaire. Do you know how little you can do with $1 billion? All this, and nothing's $1 billion. N-Chain, if it got liquidated, it's not worth the same. It's worth it as an entity. You can't. It's not just cash. You seem to have this idea that value and wealth are the same as net worth or something like this. The socialist idea that you can just take away from one thing and it's worth the same. That money is actually wealth. It's not.
but it does
Wealth
make a
is goods and
difference.
services.
But it doesn't make a difference in the lives of those who need it. So,
And then it ends, and nothing more happens.
Again, as a little kid who other people helped put a roof over my home and feed my family. And again, I'm not claiming to be a volunteer victim. Like there are many others who have it worse. You were saying, and there is a court case around it, that I am Satoshi. I have access to an enormous amount of Bitcoins that
I'm saying I have access to companies. I set up in January 2009 companies. And individuals don't just get to go and raid their company and go, I'd like to do whatever.
So is that where the Bitcoins are held? They're held at different companies.
Again, I'm not going to talk about where things are, but I own companies. I own, or I don't even own that. I mean, I structured things so that there are trusts that own companies, that whatever else. So if you want to be accurate, I own very little. I mean, I manage things for companies I constructed.
So you don't have then access. Again, this is not me putting words in your mouth. This is me trying to understand the question.
That's something I've already told people. None of your goddamn business. I run companies.
So then those that would say, again, this is the collective.
So your thing here is, why don't I just distribute what could be used in a company?
I didn't ask it that way, but that's a good way of putting it.
Because
why not?
There are people to hire, things to build, etc. It's not bloody just go out there and take it away and give it off, because, well, that's a very short-term way of thinking. Yes, it does something now, but what about next year? I want to build platforms in the future for education. To do that requires more money than I've ever imagined, and more. It doesn't mean I get to say, oh, here's $1 billion and whatever else. The simple answer, if I want to do what I want to do, will require more. The same way that people like Carnegie in the past were considered complete assholes.
That's a true story, by the way. There was a number of very, very big personalities in the past, iconic figures that were
and he went out
very difficult.
Nearly all of the libraries in America. He founded universities. He set up endowments, but they're not charity. Those universities are still there. Those libraries are still there. And kids who don't have families can still go and get books in those libraries, can still access computers in those libraries. Not, I'm going to give you a fish. I'm going to teach you to fish. It's a big difference. It may seem harsh, and you don't get the fish right away, but you'll have one the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
But how many people in the meantime that could have used the fish, at least some low-hanging fruit, could have taken advantage of it?
Yeah, and then no more. Sorry, growth comes first. It's not whether you like me. Long term, it's better. And I don't care what Keynes said. Yes, in the long term, we're all dead. But in the long term, we have growth.
So now moving on to our last segment.
I have to end though. So
you got to come on. You said, Dustin,
I
we can go all day. Like you didn't
I
say
have a
I can
meeting
only
in
go
2 minutes.
All right. Well, look, I asked you a lot of very, very tough questions. I'm sure there's people out there that would say I should have asked harder. That is not who I am. To me, it's just a conversation. We talk. That you can agree to disagree. You can agree to agree. Whatever you. But
I'm just going to end this for you with one that's. I don't really care if you want to go out and innovate and build digital gold. I think it's the stupidest, most boring idea on the planet. I think it's been tried 100 times and failed 100 times, and it will fail 101 times more. If you want to do that, go for it. But don't call it Bitcoin. Call it BitGold. Call it whatever you want to call it. Bitcoin is digital cash. It will be there working across nations for small amounts. It will facilitate people in sub-Saharan Africa to send amounts of 10 cents at a time to pay for individual vegetable purchases in markets in the middle of nowhere. I care about that. I don't give a rat's rectum whether your jet payment requires filling out forms. I care whether that guy in Africa can get the bloody vegetable purchase without paying half of his salary for the day. That's Bitcoin.
All right, everybody, you heard it from him himself. Craig Wright, thank you for coming on. And when I called it breaking news, I think there's some things about it that are going to be quite breaking. All right, Craig, thank you for your time. And I'm sure people are going to want to hear round 2. So take care.
Good to talk to you again.
You as well. See you, Craig.
Catch you later.
Bye. All right, everybody. So you heard Craig Wright moments ago. I obviously do not agree with just about everything that he says, but you don't have to in life. That you don't have to agree with everybody. I have many friends in the cryptocurrency ecosystem space that are building some incredible projects. This is Craig's opinion, his take. Doesn't mean that I agree, but I do respect others' opinions. That they feel what they feel, I have to respect that. It doesn't mean I have to agree with them. I asked questions that I thought would be engaging today. I thought, I don't know, in some ways I asked the tougher questions that going into the interview, Craig said there was nothing off limits. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Please do not go too brutally honest on me. I kind of hate that when I have to see some of the comments. We're going to have some very interesting people here on this new series, not just people in the cryptocurrency space, but others as well. Talk about what they go through. Now, I like to refer to it as dynamic personalities. So we're going to talk to them, get into their worlds, kind of figure out what motivates them, what makes them tick. And for those of you that tuned in, you just heard Craig Wright talk about his story and the things that he thinks and believes and feels and everything else. We all have our takeaways. I know I have mine. Until the next one, everybody. Thank you again for joining us.